Hey, I'm Edgar Allan Poe. I was born on January 19th, 1809, in Boston, Massachusetts, to a mother and a father who were both actors. Unfortunately, by the time I was 2 years old, my mother had passed away and my father had left the family. I was taken in by a foster family called the Allens, which is where I get my name from. I started writing poetry around the age of 13. In 1826, I enrolled at the University of Virginia. However, I went into debt and gambled to try and relieve that debt. I soon found myself in even greater debt and had to withdraw from the university. In 1830, I briefly enrolled at West Point Military Academy. After leaving West Point, I turned to writing short stories and poems full time. I lived in a number of East Coast cities such as Baltimore, New York, and Pittsburgh before settling down in Richmond, Virginia. Speaking of Virginia, I got married to my cousin, Virginia. She was 13 years old. We lived happily together until she too died of tuberculosis, just as my mother did. Now, as a writer, despite how hard I worked, I barely made a living. In my 1840 collection, Tales of the Grotesque and Arabesque, I published some of my most famous poems and stories. Many people and critics assumed that I had to be very odd and maybe even dabbled in drugs due to the nature of my stories. In 1845, I published The Raven, my most famous poem and one of the most well-known poems in American literature. Despite my hard work, I only earned about $14. In 1849, I died in Baltimore. No one really knows what happened. Not even I know, obviously. I'm the one who died. Nevertheless, I live on. Thank you for watching. Edgar Allan Poe.
Hi, my name is Sarah Margaret Fuller Asali, and this is my Draw My Life. I was born May 23, 1810, in Cambridgeport, Massachusetts. My father, Timothy Fuller, was a lawyer and a politician. He was disappointed that I was a girl and not a boy, so he homeschooled me until I was 14 years old. After further education, I became a teacher and later began organizing an educational discussion group for women called Conversations. I eventually became the first editor of the Transcendentalist journal The Dial in 1840. By the age of 30, I was named the best read person in New England between men and women and was the first woman allowed to use the library at Harvard. In 1845, I published my book, Woman in the 19th Century, and later became involved with the revolutions in Italy. After getting married and having a child, I traveled to the United States, or at least I tried to. I actually died in a shipwreck and my body was never found.